Today we're going to be tying up a blue wing olive emerger pattern. It's a great pattern that I saw on Fly Fish Food. I get a lot of my fly tying materials from them. We're going to start out with a size 14 dry fly hook here in the vise, and I've got just a glass bead on the front of it, and we're just going to use some olive thread, get started on our hook here, and we'll go ahead and clip off the waist. And then we'll just continue tying back until we're back at the bend of the hook. That's going to be about right. I'm going to come forward just a little bit. And next I'm going to tie in a piece of the same color thread. In fact, it's the same thread. We're going to use that to help split the tails. We're just going to take this strand about right in the middle. I'm going to wrap it right around my bobbin thread here. That'll allow me to just kind of tie that in place. I'm going to spin my bobbin counterclockwise to flatten out my thread a little bit, just to try to keep from building too much of a thickness here. Once I've got those in place, I'll just kind of set them aside. I'm going to move back up forward. For the tail, I'm using moose hair. It's just a little bit stiffer. We're going to have 3 tails like you would usually have on a beta kind of fly. This is the blue wing olive. I want those tails to be about half the length of the shank of the hook, so I'm going to kind of measure them up, and then I'm going to pinch them, take that measurement back to the bend of the hook, and I'm going to secure those down, kind of moving back. You can see my thread is nice and flat. You can see it kind of splayed out there. I want to keep these on the top of the shank of the hook here. Once I've got those in place, I'm going to come back up forward, and then I will turn my vise just a little bit to have access to those fibers from the moose, and we'll clip those off. I'll just clean up the butt ends just a little bit. So now we're going to go back to that thread that we tied in. I want one to the left of one of those moose hairs to help keep that separated. I'm going to grab the other end, and I want it to go right between the right tail and the center tail. Pull it tight as well. And all this is going to do is help keep those tails kind of splayed out like we want, the 3-pronged tail there. And now we'll remove that thread. We don't need it any longer. So hopefully you have something like that where you've got those 3 tails nice and splayed out. And finally, I'm going to take a brassie-size piece of black wire, secure it on the lens side of the hook, and then secure that back to where our tails are. So next we're going to just dub in a little bit of olive superfine dubbing. Just finger dub that right onto our thread. Nice and tight. I've got a little bit of extra thread, so I'll take a few wraps until I'm right back where those tails are. I want to avoid the hook points just so I don't get that. You can see it already captured a couple of those fibers. We'll just clip those off if we need to, and then we'll just start traveling forward. We want this to be a little bit tapered, so I may take a couple of wraps over the top of the previous wrap. Then I'm just going to work my way up, creating this nice tapered abdomen here. That's going to be about as much as I want, so I'm just going to go ahead and remove whatever I have left. It's always easier to get dubbing on than it is to get it off. Make sure that that's secured down. I'll just turn my vise and clip off that little bit of extra that we ended up with. Next, we'll take our black brassie-sized wire. I'm going to use this to rib. Try to take even wraps as much as you can. If anything, those wraps would get wider as you move up towards the hook eye. I'm just going to take a couple of wraps to secure that wire over the top and a couple on the other side. And I'm just going to put some pressure on it while I wiggle it back and forth. We call it helicoptering until that wire breaks off. For our wing case, we're just going to use a piece of pearl colored flashaboo here. And get that nice and tight and secure right on the center top of the hook. Once I've got kind of that butt end in there, then I'm just going to make sure that I kind of pull it more towards the center. As we wrap back on it. On this pattern, I like the abdomen to be a little buggier, so I'm going to use Awesome Possum instead of the Superfine. We'll dub that on. And as usual, we want our abdomen to be a little bit thicker than, or our thorax, sorry, to be a little bit thicker. For the little wings, I'm going to use some light done CDC. I've already stripped the fibers off the bottom. I want to kind of grab this by the tips, and then I'm going to kind of stroke those longer fibers back, trying to keep them even. Once I've got that done, I'm just going to grab my scissors and we're going to cut that tip off. So with that tip cut off, now I'm just going to stroke those fibers back into place, and it'll create a little bit of a V, not as much as you'd get with some other kinds of feathers. I'm going to use that and I'm going to straddle that right over kind of the center, so I have legs on either side. I'm going to clamp that down, take one wrap around. I'm not going to make this very tight until I get closer to the top, pulling straight up, and that'll just help keep it from spinning around too much. So it's about like that. Those legs are way too long, so we'll just use this handle on the back half and we'll just kind of pull on it until we get down to a length that we're comfortable with. I want those legs to be maybe a little bit closer to the length of the thorax. So once I've got those pulled out, I can come in and we'll just trim off that excess CDC. And then to really separate them, we'll just take our wing case. I'm going to pull that right over through the center of those fibers. Kind of pull everything back. I'll go ahead and wrap that down. Again, just stroking those fibers back a little bit. I'll take a wrap in front of that as well. And then I can come in with my scissors and we'll cut off the excess. So to finish, we're just going to take a little bit more of the olive awesome possum. We'll finger dub that on. And that's just going to kind of cover up and push those wings or legs back a little bit. Then we'll give ourselves a little bit of extra thread. We'll trim out some of those really long guard hairs that are sticking up. Pull that tight, and we'll go ahead and come in and remove our thread. At this point, I can kind of take a look at some of those longer guard hairs and just clip those right off. And finally, I'm just going to take the smallest little amount of UV resin to put over the top of our pearl material. We'll go ahead and hit that with our light. And there is a very nice blue wing olive emerger pattern. Thank you, Fly Fish Food, for another great pattern. Very easy to tie. Fishes exceptionally well. So grab yourself a hook, throw it in your vise, and give this one a shot.